One reason that I have always loved Joan Didion and continue to feel close to her is that we share places. I know a fair number of the people who have come, and the people I know who have California roots it's fun to talk to them about the Pacific Coast Highway and all the other very specific California references. And particularly, the thing that Joan Didion does better than anybody is to talk about driving. It's the rhythm of driving. There's a whole section in the madness part where she talks about driving. Hours must have passed. How long have I been here? Did she wake and think I left? She could be alone, thinking I broke the promise. I can't get from the promise to the miniskirts. And I know how it should be. So I'm going to go back and take a run at the miniskirts.
Fantastic.
And it's chopped off, pleated miniskirts chopped off.
Pleated uniform skirts chopped off into minis.
The Year of Magical Thinking is about the death within a period of scant 2 years of first, suddenly, Joan Didion's husband, and over a much longer period of time, their daughter, Quintana. I've always wanted to do this play, and I've had a long interest in the writing of Joan Didion. So during the pandemic, Jonathan Silverstein, who is the artistic director of the Keene Company and also the director of our production, asked if I would do a reading of the Year of Magical Thinking back in the age of Zoom as a benefit production. And then Johnny came here because we were going to talk about the possibility of doing the play.
And she said, well, how about I read it to you? So we sat down in her kitchen and she read it to me. And read it, but also made eye contact with me. And it was such a shattering experience and so intimate an experience that it really changed the way I thought about the play and how we might do it if we were to do it in person.
He thought that the best way to do it would be in a very intimate kind of way. So we began talking originally just about doing it in people's living rooms.
When she read it to me, I instantly felt that this wanted to take place in someone's home, as if you were in Joan Didion's home after a dinner party, and she had sat down to tell you this story. And I felt, rather than being in a theater where everyone was in the dark and Kathleen was on stage, I thought it would be amazing if everyone was sharing the same light and in the same space.
After we did another kind of test run for an audience, it was suggested that it might be a good thing to try to do it in unconventional theatrical spaces and community spaces, so that the material, which is very particular and talks about a very particular, almost exotic world, could be seen by a broader audience, because what it's talking about is universal. until I wake up in the morning and he's still not here. Let me be clear. Of course I know he's dead. Of course I delivered the definitive news to the New York Times and the Los Angeles Times, but I am myself in no way prepared to accept that news as final. There is a level on which I believe that whatever happened is still open to revision. That's why I needed to be alone. I needed to be alone so John could come back. That was the beginning of my year of magical thinking. I think that we, particularly in this culture, have separated ourselves from death. It used to be that people died at home. And now most people, I think, die in the hospital. And most people die after a long period of being kept alive in ways that certainly 50 years ago wouldn't have been possible, and maybe even 25 years ago wouldn't have been possible.
I think this story is universal and timeless, and I think people can get something from it no matter what time you're in. However, I feel like it takes on special meaning now. And that is because the story is one about navigating big change and navigating loss. And I feel like we've all been through an incredible amount of loss and trauma and change throughout the pandemic. And I think this story is a beautiful meditation on one person's journey throughout a huge change in their life.
When we saw her tonight in the ICU, her hair was damp and matted from the fever. No one seems to have brushed it. I've been trying to brush it since the day after Christmas, but I cannot. I could always brush her hair. I could even brush it in Malibu when it was long and bleached from the sun and green from the chlorine in the swimming pools, and she'd been in the water all day. She'd come up from the beach, and John would wrap her in towels on the deck outside his office, and I would brush her hair. I love you more than even one more day, he said to her tonight in the ICU. He said that on each of the 5 nights he saw her there, in case you could hear.
We are performing this piece in spaces all over New York City, in every borough except Staten Island. We tried to get Staten Island, but that was a bit of a challenge for us. We've been in brownstones in Brooklyn. We've been in a townhouse on the Upper East Side. We've been in a community space at Goddard Riverside on the Upper West Side, and also at the Bronx Documentary Center, which is a gallery. So it's really been very varied, all the different locations and audiences that we've had.
The smaller the audience, the less likely people are to laugh, because already you know it's about death and dying and all like that, and people aren't sure that you're supposed to laugh. In the larger groups, where there are 35 or 40 people, there's a kind of critical mass of laughers, people who feel that they can do it, and that brings the audience along. So that the experience is often a little more somber, kind of intense in the smaller groups. The play is very skillfully written because it happens that in almost every case, after there's a laugh, there's some horrifying thing that happens. And if the audience is comfortable about going with us, they go both those places happily. This morning, The crossword clue that caught my eye was 6 down. Sometimes you feel like. I knew the answer immediately. A good long one, filled many boxes, proved my competence for the day. A motherless child. Motherless children have a real hard time. Motherless children have such a real hard time. No. 6 down has 4 letters. I put the puzzle aside and look up the answer. The correct answer to 6 down is A-N-U-T. A nut? Sometimes you feel like a nut? How far removed was I from the world of normal response? Notice the answer most instantly accessible. A motherless child is a wail of self-pity. The dates, the chronology.
Audiences are more attentive than they are in the theater. And I think that's because everyone is sharing the same light and Kathleen is talking directly to them. And in the theater, you can disappear into the darkness a bit. And you are much more of a participant in this production. And I find that new relationship between audience, performer, and text to be so beautiful.
I don't know that I'll miss not doing it. I do have to say that it was much harder than I expected it to be, because the emotional valence of this piece is so rigorous. It's hard. And I was surprised by that.
We have been very intrepid with this piece and bringing it into non-traditional spaces. And I think it's a fascinating, wonderful model. And it has taught me a lot about the different places theater can be and the lack of production values that theater can have. But it made a lot of sense for this piece. I really hope that we can continue to gather together and bring audiences moving, emotional, joyous experiences. And I hope everyone can pitch together to make it happen even in this challenging environment.
I think that if you have an idea and you have the resources to make it happen, try anything. It's clear that people want to connect again. So anything is possible. It's just sort of essential to human beings to hear stories and tell them, and people will go where you take them. This happened on December 30th, 2003. That may seem like a while ago, but it won't when it happens to you. And it will happen to you. The details will be different, but it will happen to you. And that's what I'm here to tell you.